The secrets of a millennial man's mind. Today I have my darling and dear friend Kit, who is going to be talking us through and giving us the mindset of the millennial man. It was actually really interesting as I had this interview with him, how the differences are so very few. We're going to be getting into the interview in just a few minutes, and I really hope that you glean all the wisdom you can. Please forgive us if the sound is not perfect or the visuals are not perfect. I am not very good at techie stuff, but I am working on it. But nevertheless, do focus on the value. Yes, so I really want you to bear with us. We're going to get it all right and give you the best picture and sound moving forward in the next interviews coming up. And I really want you to follow this series. I want you to follow the playlist for the secrets of a man's mind here on YouTube, and I want you to follow these interviews because there's so many incredible nuggets and so many things across the board that these people who have not heard each other speak or were on my masterclass seem to be sharing. And if something is showing up in every interview commonly, maybe using different words, it's because that thing is really valuable. So enjoy the rest of this interview, and we will see you on our next one. In the meantime, see you in a minute. Bye bye now. Our Kit, of course, here today, ladies. He's going to be taking us through the millennial man's mind. So let's get into it, Kit. I'm gonna welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, I always love working with you, Chengi, and always bringing some insight. And yeah, let's have an open discussion and see where we can build the bridge. So.
Tell us who you're speaking for. What type of millennial man are you speaking about today? Before we start asking questions, we need to be clear.
Sure. So I think a lot of this discussion that we're going to be talking about, there's going to be a lot of broad generalizations, you know, and there's always exceptions to the rule. But when we talk about millennial men today, I'm going to be talking about, I think, what the average guy is. So the guys you are most likely coming across, the guys you're most likely to come across, you know, and, you know, as the conversation goes, we can talk about, quote unquote, on the higher quality, low quality end, you know, different habits and stuff like that, but more on, you know, when we say millennial men, the generation of men today, who are a consequence of the environment they've grown up in. So there's going to be generalizations around that.
Absolutely love that. Okay, so let's get into it. So now that you've described this guy, tell me about his spirituality. What is he spiritual? Does he want somebody spiritual? And if he does, what kind of spirituality is he into?
I do think definitely more millennial men are spiritual today than the generations before them, for sure. There's been a lot of emphasis on, you know, kind of more being in touch with their emotions and, you know, what their emotional needs are. I think that there's less spiritual peace for some reason, maybe because a lot of them feel lost about what it, quote unquote, means to be a man. Maybe you know, what role they want to play for their family, for their girlfriends or wives. I think it's always good to be questioned, but I think, you know, there's a reason why a lot of, you know, unfortunately, a lot of men today, modern men, are, you know, committing suicide at the rates that they are. So I think there's some spiritual turmoil, but I think spiritually it's just peace. I think that's the main thing that a lot of us are looking for, but especially men. So you can, you know, the man can create peace with, because, you know, half of life's journey is finding your soul food, as they say, you know, what your purpose is. And once you found that, you often want to share it with someone. So yeah, something they can find spiritual peace with, I think, is a very big thing.
I think that the millennial guy, obviously, you know, a lot of the ladies who watch this channel are religious, either Islamic or Christian, mainly Christian. Would her spirituality, if she's spiritual in that way, do you think the average millennial guy is going to be put off or drawn to it? What do you think your take would be?
I think the millennial guy is more likely to be open to that, for sure. You know, there's a lot of talk around or awareness around people's energy, the energy they carry, the energy they give, the energy they receive. You know, we have those, you know, we have that famous saying, you know, people are, you know, chargers or drainers. you know, people who take our energy and people who drain people who charge our energy. So I definitely think I definitely think guys are open to that more so now, for sure. Especially because, you know, that's a realm where maybe men haven't traditionally known or explored. So it's not uncommon that maybe a woman knows or is more in touch with that kind of energy, spiritual side, and can end up being a nice guide for him in certain areas. That's definitely happened with me in one of my relationships. So
love it. Next question is, what are his social expectations? Meeting family, friends. What kind of woman does he want to introduce to his world?
Definitely presentable, and respectful. You know, when you're talking about meeting family, colleagues, friends, you know, he's going to want to choose someone who he is proud to have on his arm. But also as well, this goes for both ways. When you're in a relationship, they are a representation of you. So if, for example, it's a work function, and depending what he does, but, you know, if he's introducing his partner to his boss, his colleagues, you know, people, his team, etc., you know, how she is in those environments is going to be important. You know, like how her demeanor, her energy. You know, is she somebody who can have a conversation? Does he have to, quote unquote, babysit her? You know, like, because sometimes if you're at a work function, you know, I had this recently where you have to go and talk to directors or producers or something, and is this someone that she can be okay talking to the friends, etc. So it's really someone who can represent him in a positive light around people that he wants to impress. Because if he's bringing you there, then it's because he believes that you can impress with him.
Okay, so I want to land me a kid, okay, and he's an actor, and he's going to introduce me to directors and producers and all these very important people. Let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. So, do I need to know about your industry? Do I need to know a lot about a lot, or how do I dress? What am I going to wear? What's my demeanor? How should I be? Because nobody's ever taught me. So maybe a few pointers there.
So, you know, I had somebody I'm saying come to my press night recently. And no, you don't have to know about the industry. You can always ask. But if you don't know what the attire is, then ask. What's the attire? What kind of people are going to be there? So, you know, at the moment I'm performing an opera. Opera is very fancy schmancy. It's very, you know, there's a lot of financial backing, etc. There's a lot of investors there. So she wore an elegant dress and she looked absolutely beautiful. And, you know, she's very good at having a conversation. You know, she doesn't feel the need to engage if she doesn't have to, but if she does, she's very open to it. And, you know, especially in these events, like bringing a positive energy, people read that. So yeah, I think presentable is definitely very important because everybody needs to look presentable. The positive energy, you know, like don't be afraid to engage with other people if they come to you.
Absolutely. And I think that's what one of our other guests was saying. And I love that you said that about her dressing appropriately for the event, for the occasion, because I feel like certainly in the millennial generation, this kind of haziness. I mean, in my generation, we always know how to dress, but, you know, not always, you know. But by and large, I think style and fashion has changed so much. You can pretty much wear shorts to the office. It's kind of crazy now. So I think a lot of, you know, to hear a younger, more millennial guy say, look, actually the way you show up for the occasion matters. And I love that you said you can ask. It's okay to ask, right?
She definitely asked me. She asked me, you know, she was like, what should I wear? And listen, whether we like it or not, you know, first impression in those kind of environments is everything. It's everything.
I love that even though you're a millennial guy, the woman you show up with still has something to do with your career. Like, she can affect it for better, hopefully. That's what we want. But if she's not appropriate, this cannot represent you that well. So I love that you said that, that responsibility. Okay, question number 4. What are his emotional core needs in a relationship?
I want to be supported, so I want to try make something specific for the man. Part of him feeling emotionally supported, and this can sometimes be hard for someone to understand, is knowing when to give him space. Because generally speaking, men and women tend to process emotions differently. A lot of the time, sometimes when something's going on with, with my female friends or with a lot of girls, they'll be like, okay, I've got this bag of emotion, and get my friends, let's all take a look and figure this out together. And that's really good. And to be fair, guys, we could probably do more of that. But generally how guys handle their emotions is they go, okay, I don't understand what this is, so I'm going to close myself off. When I figure and understand and know how to express this, then I'll let some people in. And I think sometimes allowing him to do that is something that I think guys don't know how to express. And I think when sometimes women hear it, they feel it as a rejection, that he's trying to distance himself from me emotionally, when really it's just we have a different process. So I would say, yeah, giving emotional space. And the other thing is, I would say that one of the beautiful ways that a man can feel emotionally supported is when he shares, because it's not often, because guys we like to maintain this strong masculine frame that we never have down days, that we never lose, right? But when he says something like, oh, this didn't happen, or, this thing didn't happen, and it's very subtle, but he's actually sharing maybe an insecurity or a weakness that he feels. And it's about reinforcing his belief in himself.
Right.
A woman who can do that is one that he'll always come back to.
Yeah.
And it just encourages him, because, women inspire men, and it encourages him to be better for her. So, yeah, I'd say those two main things.
I love that. The next question is, what are his greatest fears in a relationship? What does he fear?
What does he fear? He fears not being good enough, for sure. Because every man knows that women, but especially if he has an attractive woman, she's going to be getting offers thrown her way all the time. So he can fear not being good enough. Cheating's a big one, like he can fear being stepped out on, especially because the unfortunate truth is most men, they may not have the level of option that many women have.
Okay.
But this is weird. I think this next one is more about dating from the dating phase to the relationship phase.
Mm-hmm.
Some men are afraid of being domesticated. That makes sense.
I love that. Explain that.
So they feel that they may have to compromise their perceived freedom to be in a relationship. And I think the irony is for a lot of guys, the reason they, for example, go to the gym, strive to be successful, etc., it's so that they could be desirable to women. That's the drive, right? When you just have women, just one, for some guys, that drive goes. Oh. And it can go.
Right.
And it's like, I always say, my clients, and, that you should always make an effort for each other, keep each other's standards, etc., because that's what attracts to each other in the first place. But guys are like, I think sometimes guys can be afraid to lose the perceived freedom that they have. They don't want to have obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And, with everything, but, sometimes men need to understand that the benefits that comes from a relationship with the right woman is worth these sacrifices. But I think a lot of guys are afraid to make those sacrifices and become domesticated, basically.
But tell me, what would make a man feel like he can? What kind of woman can make a man feel like? And how can a woman give a man the freedom that he craves without feeling like she's allowing herself to be neglected?
Of course. Well, I'm going to say open honestly. The sexual intimacy is important for a man. Mm-hmm. Not saying she has to be crazy, but just that it's something that you both enjoy. Especially for him. Like I said, this seems to be a common one. Just allowing him. I would say something different than allowing him space, but I think sometimes what can happen is a girl can feel that if I haven't heard from him for a day or two, then he's not investing as much. but then it's always good to reflect on the actions that he's done that have led up to that point. So, has he introduced you to his friends? Is he trying to create experiences for you? Men show their actions, show their intentions through their actions. And honestly, just be there to stroke his head.
Be there to stroke his head.
After a long day, he comes home, you're just there to stroke his head.
Yes.
Honestly, men, we're literally like dogs.
I do love it. They love their heads being stroked, and it's part of how you enjoy being nurtured. So I love that. There's a tip for you girls: go stroke his head.
That's it.
Okay, so we know he's afraid of being cheated on. This comes up a lot, actually. So, in the last interviews I've had, this issues of loyalty seem to come up a lot for men, and this is what I always tell women, that loyalty is a non-negotiable, and it's and a man has to feel that you are loyal. You're going to be loyal. The recording I did with the Greta, she was talking about loyalty in the relationship. Whether he's rich, poor, broke, whatever, he's got to feel like you were gonna hang in there. And being cheated on, like you said, and I've always said this to the ladies on the channel, that men do have more of a scarcity mindset when it comes to relationships than women do, and that's just because naturally women are constantly being approached by men, and we feel this sense of abundance. Not all women, but most women. So we tend to feel like we can but men have to actually hunt for that woman. They have to actually put in some work for that woman. So when they do find her, the need to keep her is way more enhanced. So I love that. Let's see what else we can find out about a millennial man. What does he look for in a wife?
Well, I'm just going to say open and plainly, kindness.
Love that.
A team player.
Mm-hmm.
Respect is a big thing.
Huge.
Nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who likes to take care of themselves, because I like to take care of myself. I want to look good for her, and I'm going to choose someone who wants to look good for me too.
I love that about millennial men. You actually care about looking good for your women.
Yeah.
You actually do.
The men have gone up. So
yeah.
We've got to step up.
Yeah, you really do. I've dated men who are kind of millennials. Yes, I have. I'm that girl. Yeah. And I've dated guys who obviously are in my age range, who are Gen X's. And honestly, that I really do like that about millennials. I think there is an element where it can go to the extreme where, I had a boyfriend who spent more time in the mirror than me. So that was too feminine for my liking. But but I do love the consciousness in looking good. And I love something that I'm sort of picking up from you as you're speaking. You do have a consciousness of fairness. You kind of always say, you're saying in this interview, and I'm hearing you say it a lot in terms of, I want, even when you're talking about sex, you were saying, look, it's good for you too, it's good for me, it's for us, but it matters to me a lot, right? So I love that millennial men have this really enhanced sense of fairness. Even though you still ask for what you ask for and want what you want and need what you need, there is that obviously we're talking about the high value ones. We know that Kit is special. But thank you for that. Because you do want women that look amazing, take care of themselves, but you do feel that sense of, me too. I love looking after myself, and I will do that for you too. I love that.
Yeah.
Right, next. What do you desire but afraid to ask for?
Yeah. So I think a lot of guys are afraid to ask for space, and I understand, like I said, because it can feel like a rejection, but it's just sometimes it's weird. I think and this is generalization, I think, and maybe this is in the dating phase, but I think that the threshold for women to feel connected to their partner is higher than the threshold for men. So a guy can go 1-2 days without talking and then have a phone call and still feels connected, where sometimes a guy will go, if I'm not talking to you for 2-3 days, I feel distant from you. But equally, and it's generalization, I think it's the other way, maybe for the sexual side, that maybe the men stereotypically have a higher sexual threshold than women do. Because I know a lot of men, they're like, if you're up to me, we'd be having sex every day, twice a day.
Yes.
And a lot of girls are like, yo, that's too much. That's too much. It's not that you don't want to have that with him. Yeah. But the desire and need for that is less. Yeah. So I think sometimes it's about compromise. So I think and I think a lot of time, I like to think guys obviously understand, okay, women generally don't need it or want it as much as them. But I don't know how many women understand that it's not like guys don't want you, it's just that their threshold is much less than yours. That makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. This is, some of the stuff that I try to labor. And I think it's really down to communication. So I'm really excited about the Black Swan Vault for men, because I feel like, a man being afraid to ask for space is only because he doesn't know how to do it safely.
Very true.
And I mean safely.
Behind the door.
Yeah. So he uses his actions, because men are naturally action based. So he's going to use his actions and pull away and withdraw and go into his little cave. And then because the woman hasn't had the communication, because a lot of women are actually okay with, babe, I'm going to be off grid for 2 days. I'll be thinking about you, love you, and when I come back, I'm going to spoil you. A lot of reasonably healthy women emotionally are quite happy with that, because I know where you are, I know why you're not here. It's the not knowing piece, and I think men just don't know how to communicate that, or feel like they can't.
The thing is the same way that if a man doesn't like you said, communicate efficiently, that needs space, and he just kind of does it, the same way you feel rejected or distant when he tries to make an advance with you sexually, and you're like, we did it this morning twice. And but anytime you kind of don't want to, that feels like a rejection for him as well.
Yeah.
So we feel rejections in different ways based on maybe what our needs are, and it's okay to have a different level of needs. But I think we have to be able to communicate that better.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
To the next question, quite nicely. It's a nice little segue to the next question, which is about position. Yeah. What is the millennial position on money and women? How many is money around women? How many should flow between him and his woman? What would be the typical quality